You walk into a client meeting believing you're leading the relationship. But what you may not realize is that the client already made that decision long before you ever sat down. And they've already decided whether you're in the driver's seat or whether you're just riding along. Because there's a perception gap here that quietly undermines trust. And it hits hardest in the high net worth space because you're always showing up with the same intensity to help you win early in your career. You're pushing performance, you're owning outcomes, and carrying the same relationship on your back. And that mindset might have worked when you were climbing, but it doesn't automatically translate when you're sitting across from someone whose path to wealth was fundamentally different than yours. And that's exactly where things start to break for you, quietly and consistently. I was a top-performing wealth advisor, leader, and executive in the wealth management industry for 23 consecutive years, building and running multi-billion-dollar businesses. Few ever get insider access to what it really takes to reach the top levels in this business. I launched EliteVate to change that. This is my mission. So what are you going to learn from this conversation today? 1, why clients decide your role before the meeting even starts, and how that shapes everything that follows. 2, how that identity that made you successful can quietly become the ceiling that holds you back. 3, what are the 5 identity drivers that explain how high net worth clients think, decide, and interpret you? And 4, how to align the role you show up in with the role their situation actually requires, so the relationship finally moves. I want you to remember something. When you entered this business, your earliest success came from leading the discussion about what should happen next. The client you met with wanted direction. They wanted someone to simplify decisions and push things forward. And you learned how to do that well. You learned how to lead the meeting, lead the strategy, and lead the relationship. And that identity, it served you well. It's what built your book, and it's what built your reputation. But many high net worth clients operate differently, and you need to understand this, because the identity that made you successful can quietly become your ceiling. Not because you're wrong, but because the person across from you isn't responding to that version of you anymore. And you know the moment. The meeting felt great. The conversation you had with the client, it flowed. They nodded, they agreed, they were receptive. And then nothing. No movement, no deeper commitment, and no client follow through. And you tell yourself it wasn't the right time, or they needed to think, or maybe you tell yourself they weren't the right fit. But it wasn't your timing. It was personality, and it wasn't fit. It was role misalignment. You walked in as the version of yourself that succeeded on the climb instead of the version the moment actually demanded. And the clients felt the disconnect immediately, even if you didn't. Sometimes you actually win the client, but never truly evolve the client relationship. You know, they sign paperwork, they move the assets, they give you the business, but the relationship never evolves into anything deeper. It stays polite, it stays professional, but always predictable, and always stays surface level. You get updates, but not the real access. You get meetings, but not the influence you wanted. And you're part of their financial world, but you're not inside the decisions that actually matter. And you can feel the distance, even if you can't always explain why. And it happens because the client kept you in the role you always walked in with, the misaligned one. And once they place you there, they never really move you out of it. And this is the quiet cost you never catch. And I understand, because when I was an advisor, I knew this dynamic well, because I lived it. There was a point where I believed my job wasn't just about managing money. I thought I was there to teach people how to build more of it. And that approach, it worked, but only for certain clients, because I was losing more high net worth opportunities than I should have. And even though I was successful, I couldn't explain why certain clients didn't stick, even when the strategy made perfect sense. So I stopped studying just markets and models, and I started studying people, their behavior, their identity, their decision bias, even their psychology, why they trust who they trust, and why they quietly reject the advisors who don't fit. And then it clicked. It wasn't a performance issue. It was my perception issue. Not how I saw them, but how they saw me. And once I understood that, everything shifted. My meetings changed, my influence deepened, and my business grew to another level, because I knew exactly what role each client wanted me to play before he even walked into the room. And this is the part that most advisors never slow down long enough to understand. And it's the reason you're staying with me this far. The high net worth clients you want, the ones who could change the entire trajectory of your business, they're not reacting to your plan or your pitch. They're reacting to who they believe you are in their world. And that belief, it's not based on performance. It's not based on your credentials. And it's not even based on how good you are. It's based on identity. And it's their identity. It's how they think. It's how they make decisions. It's how they interpret uncertainty and how they've built and protected their wealth. And I've learned this in my career across thousands of meetings, my own and the ones I coach advisors and leaders through for years. And once I understood what really drives client behavior, everything about the advisor-client dynamic became clearer. So I want to walk you through the same lens. The one I used to build high-performing teams and help advisors unlock relationships they kept getting stuck in. People don't show up randomly. They show up as a product of their wiring, their experiences, and the traits those experiences built. And once you understand those traits, you start seeing the same patterns across clients who come from similar worlds. So here are the 5 identity markers you need to know how to read. 1, what made them who they are today? And this is their experiences and responsibilities that shape their standards and what they expect from anyone advising them. You need to match the level they live at. If you show up below the standard they built themselves on, you're done before the meeting starts. 2, how they view the world around them. This is their internal lens. It's the way they interpret situations, information, and people, including you. If your message enters through the wrong frame, it doesn't land, even when it's right. 3, how do they make decisions? The patterns they rely on to weigh risk, process information, and commit. If you push pace or sequence that doesn't match their wiring, you break trust before the recommendations even show up. 4, what's the role they expect you to play? Every client walks in with a sense of what their situation requires. Someone to take the wheel or someone who's going to ride along. See the role the moment demands from you before you position your own, or you'll start the entire meeting misaligned from the start. 5, the solutions they instinctively trust. Clients don't trust solutions because they're better. They trust what fits their world, what feels useful, what matches their lived experiences, and what risks they're comfortable handing off for someone else to manage. And if it doesn't feel familiar to them, or valuable, or like the right kind of risk to transfer, they won't move no matter how strong the idea is. And remember this, people who come from similar worlds tend to think, decide, and trust in similar ways. And their wiring shows up across all 5 identity markers. And those patterns repeat far more than you'll realize. Because when you can learn to read the pattern once, you can apply it the same way across countless numbers of clients. When you start seeing clients through this lens, everything will change. The conversations will stop stalling. The clients you used to almost win will start saying yes. And the ones who kept you at a distance begin pulling you into the decisions that actually matter. Because you're no longer going to show up as an advisor trying to push a plan. You're going to start showing up as a person who fits how they think, decide, and operate. And here's the final thing I want you to remember. You're not missing capability. You're not missing talent. You've just been operating without the lens most high-net-worth clients actually use to decide whether you belong in their world or not. And once you understand this, and you show up in the role their situation truly requires, their hesitation, it starts to disappear. And the relationship finally moves the way it should have from the beginning. Not every client wants the same kind of advisor. Not every situation needs the same approach. But every client expects you to know the role you belong in. And if you get this part right, you won't just win more of the right clients. Your entire business will elevate to a level most advisors never reach. Every week, I break down the real strategy behind top performance for wealth advisors and leaders ready to operate the level they're built for. This is EliteVate. We cut through the fluff, no hype, no theory, just strategy, psychology, and execution. If this hits home, subscribe. You're not just watching and learning. You will become the model others follow.